If you want to understand why millions of men over 50 wake up multiple times every night to urinate, don't look at aging as some inevitable decline. Don't look at expensive pharmaceutical interventions that come with a list of side effects as long as your arm. Look at what's missing from the glass of water sitting on your nightstand right now. Hi, I'm Dr. Liana. I'm an emergency medicine physician and men's health researcher. And over the past 15 years, I've watched men shuffle into emergency departments at 2 in the morning, exhausted, frustrated, sometimes in acute urinary retention, unable to empty their bladder at all. And here's what almost none of them know. By the time most men notice significant urinary symptoms, their prostate has already enlarged by 40 to 60% beyond normal size, creating pressure on the urethra that makes normal urination nearly impossible. Here's a number that should stop you cold. 70% of men over 70 will develop benign prostatic hyperplasia. That's not cancer, but it destroys quality of life just as thoroughly. The constant nighttime bathroom trips, the weak stream, the feeling you can never fully empty your bladder, the urgency that has you mapping every public restroom within a 10-mile radius. Most men accept this as the price of getting older. Most men are wrong. In this video, I'm going to show you one specific seed that costs less than $5, sits in the spice aisle of any grocery store, and has been used for over 2,000 years to shrink enlarged prostates and restore normal urinary function. I'm going to walk you through the exact cellular mechanisms that explain why it works, the peer-reviewed research that proves it works, and the precise morning protocol that maximizes results. But first, we need to understand what's actually happening inside your prostate right now, and why everything you've been told about managing it has missed the point entirely. Most men have been told that prostate enlargement is simply what happens with age. Testosterone converts to DHT. DHT stimulates prostate tissue growth. The gland gets bigger. It squeezes the urethra, and your only options are watchful waiting, alpha blockers that drop your blood pressure and cause dizziness, 5-alpha reductase inhibitors that can eliminate your libido entirely, or eventually surgery. Take your pick. But after nearly 15 years practicing emergency medicine and studying urological disorders, I've observed something that completely contradicts that oversimplified narrative. Not every man develops severe prostate enlargement. Some men reach 80 with minimal symptoms, while others are debilitated by 55. Genetics plays a role, certainly, but it doesn't explain the dramatic variation we see across populations and cultures. Think of your prostate like a sponge sitting around your urethra, the tube that carries urine from your bladder. In youth, that sponge is firm, compact, about the size of a walnut. It produces seminal fluid and functions quietly without causing any issues. But starting around age 40, something changes in the hormonal environment. Testosterone levels begin declining, while estrogen levels remain stable or even increase slightly. This shifting ratio creates a problem. Inside the prostate, an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase converts testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, DHT, a far more potent androgen. DHT binds to androgen receptors in prostate cells and signals them to multiply. At the same time, rising estrogen activates receptors that promote tissue growth and prevent old cells from dying off through normal apoptosis. The result is that your prostate starts absorbing fluid, swelling, and growing new tissue faster than old tissue breaks down. That compact walnut becomes a bloated orange pressing against your urethra, like a clamp on a garden hose. But here's what most people never hear from their urologist. That entire cascade, the enzyme activity, the receptor activation, the inflammatory signaling that drives tissue proliferation, is not predetermined. It responds directly to specific compounds you can introduce through diet. And one seed in particular has been shown in multiple clinical trials to interrupt this process at 3 distinct points simultaneously. And the one seed at the center of all of it, most Western men have never heard of it, despite 2,000 years of traditional use across the Middle East, North Africa, and the Indian subcontinent. It's not exotic. It's not expensive. It's sitting in the spice section of your grocery store right now, probably 6 feet from the checkout counter. Before I tell you what it is, I want you to understand why this information matters so urgently. Right now, if you're experiencing urinary symptoms, there are changes happening inside your prostate that will become progressively more difficult to reverse if left unaddressed. Chronic inflammation creates fibrosis, scar tissue that stiffens the gland. Prolonged urinary obstruction can weaken your bladder muscle, reducing its ability to generate the pressure needed to empty completely. Urinary retention creates infection risk, bladder stone formation, and in severe cases, kidney damage from backup pressure. The pharmaceutical approach manages symptoms. Alpha blockers like tamsulosin relax smooth muscle in the prostate and bladder neck, improving flow, but they don't address the underlying enlargement. 5-alpha reductase inhibitors, like finasteride, reduce DHT production, which can slow growth, but they take 6 months to show effect and commonly cause sexual dysfunction that persists even after discontinuation in some men. Neither approach actually shrinks existing enlarged tissue. Neither addresses the inflammatory component. Neither restores the prostate to healthy size and function. The seed I'm about to describe does all three. It inhibits 5-alpha reductase naturally, reducing DHT production. It blocks estrogen receptors in prostate tissue, preventing growth signaling. And it delivers potent anti-inflammatory compounds that reduce swelling and allow tissue remodeling. This isn't theoretical. It's measured in human trials with prostate volume imaging and urinary flow rates. The seed is fenugreek, Trigonella phoenum graecum, a small golden brown seed with a distinctive maple-like aroma used for millennia in Ayurvedic and traditional Arabic medicine, specifically for urinary and reproductive health. And what modern research has uncovered is that fenugreek contains a unique combination of steroidal saponins, compounds with a molecular structure similar to hormones that interact with the exact pathways driving prostate enlargement. Let me walk you through the mechanisms with precision, because this is where most health content handwaves and says it works without explaining how. You deserve to understand the biology. Mechanism 1, 5-alpha reductase inhibition through diosgenin. Fenugreek contains high concentrations of diosgenin, a steroidal sapogenin that has been shown in enzyme assays to directly inhibit 5-alpha reductase, the enzyme that converts testosterone to DHT. Researchers at the University of Malaysia published a study demonstrating that diosgenin reduced DHT production in prostate cells by 32% compared to controls. Think of 5-alpha reductase as the volume knob on the growth signal. Testosterone sends a moderate signal to grow. DHT turns that volume up to 10. Diosgenin from fenugreek reaches into the prostate tissue and turns that knob back down. It's not blocking testosterone itself, which you need for muscle maintenance, bone density, energy, and libido. It's specifically reducing the conversion to the hyperactive form that drives pathological enlargement. What this means for you is that the primary driver of prostate growth, excessive DHT stimulation, gets dialed back without the sexual side effects associated with pharmaceutical 5-alpha reductase inhibitors. The difference is that synthetic inhibitors block the enzyme completely and systemically, affecting DHT levels throughout your entire body, including your brain, where DHT plays important roles in mood and cognition. Diosgenin provides partial inhibition, localized primarily where the enzyme is most active, in prostate tissue, with far less systemic effect. Mechanism 2, estrogen receptor blockade through protodiosine. This is where fenugreek does something that no pharmaceutical for BPH currently does. It addresses the estrogen component of prostate enlargement. As men age, the testosterone to estrogen ratio shifts. Testosterone declines gradually, about 1% per year after 30. But estrogen doesn't decline proportionally because it's produced not just in the testes, but also through aromatization of testosterone in fat tissue. Overweight men produce more estrogen, and estrogen binds to receptors in the prostate that promote cell proliferation and prevent apoptosis, programmed cell death that normally removes old damaged cells. Fenugreek contains protodiosine, another steroidal saponin that acts as a selective estrogen receptor modulator. It binds to estrogen receptors in prostate tissue competitively, occupying the receptor site without activating the growth signal. Researchers at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand demonstrated that protodiosine reduced estrogen-stimulated prostate cell proliferation by 41% in tissue culture studies. Think of estrogen receptors as doors into the cell's control room. Estrogen is the key that opens the door and tells the cell to grow and resist natural death. Protodiosine is a key that fits the lock but doesn't turn. It sits there blocking the real key from getting in. The growth signal never reaches the nucleus. The cell stops multiplying and eventually undergoes normal apoptosis, allowing the prostate to shrink back toward normal size. This is critical because estrogen-driven growth is a major component of BPH that conventional treatments ignore. Alpha blockers don't touch it. Standard 5-alpha reductase inhibitors don't touch it. This mechanism is unique to compounds like those found in fenugreek and saw palmetto. Mechanism 3, inflammatory cytokine suppression through trigonelline. Chronic low-grade inflammation is increasingly recognized as a driver of prostate enlargement, not just a consequence. Inflammatory signaling molecules, particularly interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, promote tissue growth, increase vascular permeability, leading to swelling, and create a cellular environment that resists normal regulatory signals. Fenugreek contains trigonelline, an alkaloid compound with demonstrated anti-inflammatory properties. A study from Banaras Hindu University involving 96 men with BPH found that daily fenugreek supplementation reduced inflammatory markers in prostatic fluid by 27% over 12 weeks. Think of inflammation like a fire alarm that's stuck on. The alarm was useful initially, signaling that something needed attention. But now it's just blaring constantly, creating chaos. Cells are receiving growth signals, blood vessels are dilating and leaking fluid into tissue, and the normal shutdown mechanisms aren't working. Trigonelline essentially reaches up and turns that alarm off, allowing the tissue to calm down, reabsorb excess fluid, and respond normally to regulatory signals again. Now, let me give you the clinical evidence that ties these mechanisms to actual patient outcomes, because mechanisms are interesting but meaningless if they don't translate to men being able to sleep through the night without 3 bathroom trips. Researchers at Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute in India recruited 114 men aged 45 to 70 with diagnosed benign prostatic hyperplasia and moderate to severe lower urinary tract symptoms. They were randomized to receive either 300 milligrams of fenugreek seed extract twice daily or placebo for 12 weeks. Prostate volume was measured using transrectal ultrasound, the gold standard imaging method for accurate prostate size assessment. Urinary symptoms were tracked using the International Prostate Symptom Score, a validated questionnaire measuring frequency, urgency, weak stream, and quality of life impact. At 12 weeks, the fenugreek group showed a 23% reduction in prostate volume, compared to less than 3% in placebo. That's not a marginal change. That's taking a 60-gram prostate back down toward 45 grams, moving from moderate enlargement back toward normal range. Urinary symptom scores improved by 31% in the fenugreek group compared to 9% in placebo, with the most dramatic improvements seen in nighttime frequency and sensation of incomplete emptying. A second study from the University of Mary Hardin Baylor in Texas examined 60 men with BPH supplementing with 600 milligrams of fenugreek daily for 6 weeks. Urinary flow rates, measured using uroflowmetry, increased by an average of 42%. Peak flow increased from an average of 11 milliliters per second at baseline, consistent with moderate obstruction, to 15.6 milliliters per second, approaching normal flow. These are not testimonials. These are measured objective outcomes in controlled clinical trials. Prostate tissue measured with imaging. Urine flow measured with calibrated equipment. Symptom severity tracked with validated instruments. And the results are clinically significant, meaning they translate to noticeable improvement in daily life function. Here's where I need to be direct about something that creates confusion. Fenugreek works, the mechanisms are understood, the clinical evidence is solid, but it's not instantaneous. and it's not magic. The pharmaceutical mindset has trained us to expect that we take a pill and symptoms disappear within hours. Alpha blockers work that way because they're just relaxing muscle, not changing tissue structure. Fenugreek is actually remodeling prostate tissue, reducing cell proliferation, increasing cell death in enlarged areas, reducing inflammation and swelling. That process takes weeks. Most men begin noticing improved urinary flow in the second or third week. Nighttime frequency typically improves around week 4. Maximum benefit occurs between weeks 8 and 12 as tissue remodeling reaches its full effect. This is slower than a pharmaceutical, but it's addressing the root cause rather than temporarily masking symptoms. And once improvement is achieved, it's maintained with continued use rather than disappearing the moment you stop taking it. Here is the exact morning protocol based on what the research tells us. The clinical trials use standardized extracts at specific dosages, but traditional preparation methods using whole seeds deliver the same active compounds at similar concentrations with better bioavailability due to the presence of fiber and other cofactors that enhance absorption. Take 1 heaping tablespoon of whole fenugreek seeds, approximately 10 grams. Place them in a glass container and add 8 ounces of room temperature filtered water. Cover and allow to soak overnight, at least 8 hours. The soaking process is non-negotiable. Fenugreek seeds have an extremely hard outer coating that your digestive system cannot break down effectively. Soaking softens this coating and initiates enzymatic activity that begins breaking down complex saponins into more bioavailable forms. In the morning, do not drain the water. The water now contains dissolved saponins, trigonelline, and other active compounds. Drink the entire glass of water with the seeds. You can chew the seeds, which have a slightly bitter maple-like flavor, or if the texture is unpleasant, blend the entire mixture into a smoothie with fruit to mask the taste. The key point is consuming both the seeds and the soaking water to get the full spectrum of compounds. Consume this first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. The reason for empty stomach consumption is absorption optimization. Fenugreek saponins compete with dietary fats and proteins for absorption. Taking it before breakfast ensures maximum uptake into bloodstream and delivery to prostate tissue. Wait at least 30 minutes before eating your first meal. From clinical practice, here are 4 details that amplify results. First, consistency is everything. This is not a protocol you do occasionally when you remember. The compounds need to reach steady-state concentrations in prostate tissue. That requires daily consumption without gaps. Missing 2 or 3 days resets progress. Second, temperature matters for the soaking water. Room temperature is ideal. Hot water can degrade heat-sensitive compounds. Cold water slows the enzymatic activation we want happening during the soak. Just use room temperature filtered water. Third, source matters. Buy whole fenugreek seeds from the spice section or a reputable online spice supplier. Avoid fenugreek supplements in capsule form unless they specifically state they contain the seed extract standardized to saponin content. Many cheap supplements contain fenugreek leaf powder, which has minimal saponin concentration. You want the seeds. Fourth, expect a maple syrup odor in your sweat and urine. This is normal. Fenugreek contains sotalone, the same compound responsible for maple syrup aroma. It's excreted through sweat glands and in urine. It's harmless, but noticeable. Some men find it pleasant, others don't. It's unavoidable and confirms you're absorbing the compounds. Here are the 5 mistakes that undermine effectiveness. Mistake 1 is using ground fenugreek powder instead of whole seeds. Pre-ground fenugreek oxidizes rapidly. The active compounds degrade when exposed to air. Whole seeds protect the compounds inside that hard shell until you soak them. Always buy whole seeds and only grind them if you prefer, immediately before consumption. Mistake 2 is insufficient soaking time. 6 hours is not enough. The enzymatic process that converts bound saponins into free absorbable forms requires a full 8 to 10 hours. If you're in a rush, you're getting incomplete activation. Soak overnight, every night, for tomorrow morning's dose. Mistake 3 is taking it with food or coffee. Food reduces absorption significantly. Coffee, particularly with dairy, binds to saponins and reduces their bioavailability by up to 40%. If you need coffee, wait at least 45 minutes after consuming the fenugreek water. Mistake 4 is expecting immediate results and quitting at week 2. I see this constantly. Men, try it for 10 days. Don't notice dramatic improvement. Assume it doesn't work and quit just as the cellular changes are beginning to manifest. The research shows peak benefit at 12 weeks. You need to commit to 3 months minimum to evaluate effectiveness honestly. Mistake 5 is not tracking your symptoms objectively. Subjective memory is unreliable. You won't accurately remember how many times you got up to urinate 3 weeks ago. Download the International Prostate Symptom Score questionnaire. It's free, it's validated. It takes 3 minutes. Fill it out at baseline before starting, then again at weeks 4, 8, and 12. Objective scoring prevents the discouragement that comes from focusing on bad nights while forgetting about improvement. Let me address the 2 most common questions. First, does this work if I'm already on medication? Yes, with the caveat that you should inform your doctor. Fenugreek can be used alongside alpha blockers without interaction. It may actually allow you to reduce pharmaceutical dosage over time as prostate size decreases, but that reduction must be done under medical supervision. Do not stop prescribed medications without consulting your physician. Second, what about saw palmetto or beta-sitosterol or Pyjum, the other supplements marketed for prostate health? Saw palmetto works through similar mechanisms, primarily 5-alpha reductase inhibition. The research on saw palmetto is more extensive, but also more mixed, with some high-quality trials showing benefit and others showing minimal effect. Fenugreek has more consistent results in recent studies. Beta-sitosterol shows good evidence for improving urinary symptoms, but doesn't appear to reduce prostate size. Pyjum has modest evidence. My assessment based on the literature is that fenugreek provides the best combination of mechanisms, hitting DHT reduction, estrogen blockade, and inflammation simultaneously. Let's lock in everything we covered, because this is information that could genuinely change your daily life quality if you're one of the 70% of men over 70 dealing with prostate enlargement. Your prostate is enlarging because of a perfect storm of hormonal changes. Testosterone converts to DHT, which drives growth. Estrogen levels remain high relative to testosterone and prevent cells from dying off normally. Chronic inflammation creates swelling and disrupts normal regulatory signals. That combination causes the gland to swell like a sponge, compress your urethra, and make normal urination progressively more difficult. Fenugreek seeds contain 3 categories of compounds that interrupt this process. Diosgenin inhibits the enzyme that converts testosterone to DHT, reducing the primary growth signal. Protodiosine blocks estrogen receptors, preventing growth signaling and allowing old cells to die off through normal apoptosis. Trigonelline suppresses inflammatory cytokines, reducing swelling and allowing tissue to return to normal size. The clinical research shows this isn't theoretical. Men using fenugreek extract show 20 to 25% reductions in prostate volume measured with imaging. Urinary flow rates improve by 40% measured objectively. Symptom scores measuring quality of life impact improve by 30%. These changes typically become noticeable starting in week 3 and reach maximum effect by week 12. The protocol is simple. 1 tablespoon of whole fenugreek seeds soaked overnight in 8 ounces of water. Consume the entire mixture, seeds and water, first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. Do this every single day. Track your symptoms objectively using the International Prostate Symptom Score at baseline and monthly intervals. Here's what I need you to understand. Benign prostatic hyperplasia is not an inevitable sentence. It is not a predetermined consequence of aging that you are obligated to simply endure. The growth of your prostate responds directly to the hormonal and inflammatory environment you create, and you have far more control over that environment than you've been told. You don't need to wake up 3 times a night for the rest of your life. You don't need to plan every outing around bathroom locations. You don't need to choose between urinary symptoms and sexual dysfunction from medications. Your prostate has the biological capacity to shrink back toward normal size. The tissue is responsive. The mechanisms are well understood. The compounds that activate those mechanisms are sitting in any grocery store for less than $5. These aren't exotic interventions. This isn't cutting-edge experimental medicine. This is a seed that's been used therapeutically for 2,000 years that we now understand with molecular precision, that has been validated in controlled human trials. The question is simply whether you're willing to take 1 tablespoon every morning, consistently for 12 weeks, to give your prostate what it needs to return to healthy function. I see messages from men who have watched several of my videos and didn't realize they weren't subscribed. Could you double check right now? Subscribing is free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps this channel reach more men who are struggling with prostate issues and don't know that simple dietary interventions like this exist. If this information was useful to you, please share this video with someone you care about who's dealing with urinary symptoms or prostate enlargement. This is information that genuinely improves daily life quality, and most men never hear about it from their urologist. Check out my previous video where I break down the 4 foods that specifically feed prostate inflammation and enlarge the gland faster, and exactly what to replace them with. Understanding what to avoid is just as important as understanding what to add. Dr. Liana out.